Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I'm back with another review. And today we are taking a look at making it my return to reviewing the G.I. Joe line. This is a G.I. Joe classified series, Scarlett. I got this figure from Amazon. We'll talk more about availability and things like that at the end of the review. But it is able to be ordered now. I think they're having a little bit of a stocking issue, so you'll order it and then they'll have to ship it out in a day or two. This is from the new, as I already said, classified series. These are now 6-inch reimagining figures, collectors oriented figures of the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero line. So what we'll do is pause and then we'll come back and take a look at the packaging. Okay, so here's the packaging for Scarlett. I don't know if I'll be doing this for all the classified series figures, but a few things to point out right off the bat. There are no instructions included with this figure, which we'll get into when we look at the figure properly, why that would have been helpful. And unfortunately, there is no bio card. What we do have is a very nice full color painting, which is available on Hasbro Pulse as a poster, showing the figures from Wave 1 and probably other figures coming down the line. I would not hold my breath for getting any of these vehicles in the 6-inch scale because, at least with Hasbro's experience, 6-inch scale vehicles tend to not sell well, and selling poorly is something that G.I. Joe can't afford to do. Now, why I said we don't have a file card proper, which is a major slight on this line, what we do have on either side of the box is file information. Starting off, we have a pictograph, or at least what I think is a pictograph file card that shows off Scarlett in various action poses. She is a martial artist. I would put her on par to Snake Eyes, commando, espionage, infantry. So just looking at the pictures, you can kind of get an idea of the type of character and soldier Scarlett is. Now on the other side here, these are little icons of, and they're all different, so they explain the different attributes that each character has. Unfortunately, there is no explanation anywhere on the packaging what these mean. Now, this one right here of a martial artist giving a kick, that can either be general combat, hand-to-hand combat prowess, or martial arts. I don't know. Unfortunately, this is, again, should have been something included with the packaging. You want to, when it's a new line like this, you want to draw people in, not keep them out. Granted, the majority of people who are going to be buying these figures already know the history of Scarlett and know what kind of character she is. So we'll pause right now and we'll take a look at her accessories. For those of you who are going to be new to the 6-inch style of figure, allow me to explain what Hasbro usually does. The cost of the entire wave is spread out across the figures. In that regard, some figures will have more paint detail and accessories than others. Scarlett, I think, falls somewhere in the middle, as she comes with 4 accessories. First, we have a selection of knives. We have a small utility knife like this, and then we have 2 identical K-bar style Bowie knives with that ridged edge. All of them can store on her person, of which there is no instructions how to. Thankfully, it's fairly easy to figure out, and I will show you. The main accessory is a reimagining of Scarlett's classic crossbow. For those of you who are longtime Joe fans, you know Scarlett is identified with the crossbow. It would have been nice, like the Marvel Legends Hawkeye figure, if we got a little assortment of trick arrows that she was been known to use that could load into the crossbow. But again, I understand why it wasn't included. The crossbow does come apart And spoilers, to get it into her hand, you will end up having to take it apart. But there's the base, there's the bow part. And basically it goes together. That part will just peg in there, and this will hook into the back. It stays together very well, unless you start knocking into it, and it will come loose. Like I said, if you're going to be putting it into her hand, you're going to want to, just make that focus, you're going to want to take it apart. So now let me show you how to get the weapon in her hand and storing the knives. Okay, so to store the knives on Scarlett, this smaller one actually fits into the sheath right up here up front. It is the only knife that can fit in that sheath. On the back here, you'll notice the quiver of bolts for the crossbow, and I do like how you can draw them from underneath like that, but you do have a slot here at the top where you would fit the two larger knives. And this is where I would say having instructions would help, because I would not think to put knives into a slot there on the back. There is, as far as I can tell, no way to store the crossbow. Speaking of which, let's get a look at the hand there. That is has a molded trigger finger, and the wrist does have that enhanced articulation where it can go up and down. Like I said, when looking at the accessories, make your life easier. Just remove the top part of the bow, slide it in, make sure to get the finger into the trigger. It is a little hard to see since you have black on black. And then just go ahead and attach the top part of the crossbow. It will stay in hand very well. There is a little bit of a loose belt pouch thing here. So yeah, all in all, not a bad figure. So what we'll do now is I will pause a moment, and I will show you the articulation of this figure. Okay, I went ahead and removed the crossbow just for the ease of handling. Starting off, looking at this head, very nice sculpt, very nice detail. I think it draws from the Resolute version of Scarlett, as well as the animation model, with maybe a touch of the original toy. I would have liked to have seen the ponytail being on a ball joint to help for articulation. As it is, it's soft plastic and doesn't get in the way much. There's a lot actually going on in the head. First, there is a hinge joint there that can allow you to have the figure look up and down, as well as the ball joint, which is somewhat expressive. There is also a neck joint, which you should be aware of to make sure that you keep it lined up, that when you turn the head, you're turning, if the neck moves, you line it back up so it doesn't look, out of sorts. You have a universal joint here on both arms. This arm, of course, has a little bit of a armor there, so you might have a little bit harder of a time getting it in position. Single jointed elbow, rotation there at the bicep. So far standard for the more recent 4-inch G.I. Joe figures. As I mentioned before, it has that up and down movement on this wrist. This wrist has the in and out movement. It is a very close sculpted C grip, so it is kind of hard to get those two-handed poses on the crossbow, as there really isn't a dedicated grip joint. Coming down to the torso, we're getting into a little bit of a Japanese 6-inch collectible action figure territory. You have a diaphragm joint that's, very expressive. But then underneath, you have a waist joint, which is also very expressive. And you can get some good bending there, I would say. Again, much like the head, when you're moving the diaphragm, if you want to move the waist, grab from the waist. If you want to move the diaphragm, move from the diaphragm. It is very easy to get them out of sorts. Now, for the big part, in terms of Japanese collectible action figure articulation, we come to the hips. Forward, back, out. The hips drop down. I'll do it on both sides here. Much bigger range of movement. This is the kind of stuff they put on SH Figure Art, Common Rider figures to get the rider kicks and stuff. Very nice that it's here. You have a swivel at the upper part of the thigh. Let me bring that back up. Double jointed knees that work. Rotation here at the calf, which is very nice. That's so we can do kneeling poses and not have the ankle look weird, because you do have full ankle articulation as well as a rocker. Having those drop hips really do help with the articulation, since Scarlett is a bit of a martial artist. In fact, allow me to show you something you can do with her. This is being done in real time, since I want to make sure you all can see how hard or easy it is to do these kind of poses. But positioning her ever so slightly, it might have a net problem because of my display base here, my white box. But if you just balance it just so, you can get a karate kicking pose. That is very nice. Now, this drop hip I have seen is coming out more on Marvel Legends. I do want to say that I am not 100% sure if this figure uses a Marvel Legends female body or buck. I am going to say no, as Hasbro tends to not cross the streams that much between their lines, especially the 6-inch lines. So, last thing I want to talk about is two things. Number one, I always kind of figured Scarlett's outfit was a Kevlar-based body armor and not just a jumpsuit. So the gauntlets here that have ninja stars on them are actually heavy, Kevlar gloves. Also, there was talks about this gold-yellow type of unified armor scheme. I think with this new G.I. Joe line, they're going to be playing up the sci-fi elements, and that plays into it, which we'll get into towards the end of the review as I give my final thoughts, which we're going to get into right now. Okay, so I have to say I actually very much enjoy the Scarlett figure, but then again, I enjoy 6-inch collectible action figures. There's a lot more room for more articulation, proper articulation, sculpt, and paint work than on a 4-inch scale figure. Now, there is, of course, some controversy to this line. A lot of collectors are not happy in the increase in size. To which I say, if you don't like it, don't buy it. There are some members of the G.I. Joe community who feel that you have to support the brand to keep the brand going. And that's just not the case, and I just don't believe in that. If you're not happy with the product, don't buy it. If G.I. Joe goes away, then that happens. But I think it's better for it to go away than to keep putting out product that the fans and consumers aren't going to buy and aren't going to enjoy. Brings me to my second point. Starting out with Scarlett, now, this is actually the 5th figure in the line, but it happened to be the first figure that was shipped to me. She doesn't really have as sci-fi of an element to her as some of the other figures, since, it's a crossbow. But that's a very futuristic, tactical-looking crossbow. I think one of the concessions Hasbro's had to make to get this line into store shelves is to basically not use realistic-looking weapons, which explains why the Hasbro Pulse exclusive, possible San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, if it was a San Diego Comic-Con, Snake Eyes comes with an Uzi and Beretta and, or Glock, or, actual looking hand weapons. And the mainline retail release of Snake Eyes comes with guns that look a little more like they come from the Nerf line. That's just something Hasbro's had to do. I think it has to do with the mind of the average parent consumer now and what they want their children playing with. It is what it is. That brings me to my third point. I have heard rumors through the line that Hasbro is already greatly concerned about the G.I. Joe Classified series selling well due to the situation where we find ourselves in now, that its retailers are only stocking household essential products, and toys, such as this, aren't essential. I like to remind everybody that the Star Wars Black Series had a very hard time getting started. That first wave, in particular, the Slave Leia figure, shelf warmed for a very long time, to the point where waves 2 and 3, which featured more iconic characters like Han Solo, were hard to find, if ever found, on retail. And that's why down the line, they were reissued in sort of like a greatest hits series, since they were so hard to find. Therefore, if you are interested in these new line of figures, I would recommend buying them online or having some patience at your normal retailer. But keep in mind, you just may not be able to find them. Another issue I think this line is going to have is, number one, that San Diego exclusive Snake Eyes, or that Hasbro Pulse exclusive Snake Eyes, I should more properly call it, somehow was released early in a small number, all of which went into the hands of scalpers who are now charging over close to $200, between $150 to $200 for that figure. Heck, some of them are even selling the box for like $50. That type of stuff turns off a lot of fans and a lot of new onlookers who frankly don't want to pay that kind of money for a figure. I have to be honest with you. If it wasn't for the fact that I got these figures early from Amazon, I probably wouldn't be looking at them right now, because if I can't get that Snake Eyes figure, that's going to be a big deciding factor if I go forward with this line, because I can't just missing out. Well, I don't want to say missing out, but the way that distribution works. Hopefully more are released in July at its original release date, which brings me to my next point. Somehow, cases of these figures were released and got into the hands of, once again, scalpers. In fact, these figures were released before the final figure, Snake Eyes, was revealed. So eBay listings charging upwards of like $500 for a set of, I think, 5 figures? Were our first look at Snake Eyes. And it was just, the way Hasbro unveiled this line was very weird and very odd, and something I think they need to reconsider going forward. If you don't, 4 figures here, 1 figure there, another figure there. Show them all at once or not at all. Now, that said, as I said at the beginning, I think Scarlett is a fine figure, a great addition to the collection, one of the original G.I. Joes, and a great, strong female character that I've always enjoyed. So definitely, I think it's worth a place in your collection, be if you're a Marvel Legends collector, a Star Wars Black Series collector, or even a Power Rangers Lightning Collection figure. She can do the martial arts with the best of them, so I think she'll fit in right there. We've got a Pink Ranger, now we can have a Scarlet Red Ranger. See what I did there? I'm so sorry. Well, I think I've rambled on long enough. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and liking the video. That does help. How, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what other reviewers say. But I would appreciate a subscription, as it helps me know who's actually watching these videos. If you are also so inclined, I do have a Patreon. You will see a link in the description and a card here at the end of the video. All I ask for is $1 a month, no tiers, no special benefits, no frills. It literally will help me continue to bring figures like Scarlett here to this channel. If the figures don't get views, I'm going to have a very hard time justifying the cost of buying them and bringing them to you. So definitely, please, share this video around your G.I. Joe communities and support reviewers, support video reviewers, support content creators, because a lot of sites don't. This is your old pal Chuck for Scarlett. We will see you next time.